You're listening to the Valley Current.
Hey, Tom.
How you doing?
So we were going to talk about collaboration because you did a great article, and it inspired me to kind of put a bunch of stuff into ChatGPT. And the other thing I've been experimenting with as well is another tool called Perplexity, which is like a supercharged ChatGPT. Right. I don't know if you've used it, but it actually gives you a lot of the research sources that ChatGPT doesn't. And it drops a lot of footnotes that have some real value. So using that with Copilot together generates a lot of stuff. And then I sent you what it generated. And I thought, hey, this is really an interesting topic because the future of collaboration is going to now be three ways. It's going to be knowledge worker one, call it consultant, knowledge worker two, call it CEO of some firm, and the mutually shared AI that's spitting back all sorts of brainstorming ideas that you can either think are crap, or you can say, you know what, we didn't think of that. And maybe we should factor that in. So it creates a new triad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that the genesis of this article, truthfully, was the backing away of the immigration by the Senate. By the Senate and the House.
Right.
And because the two things were coming together at the same time for us, Jack. One was our research. We did research coming out of COVID for a book called Leadership Development, The Next Curve to Flatten. And what we found was that the younger workers, the high potentials, which is part of our constituency that we advise in our firm, they were unambiguous about this. They wanted to see their leaders be empathetic, transparent, accountable, and collaborative, all four. Okay. And if they saw deficiencies in any of those four behaviors, then, the leader themselves, he or she was losing the ability to influence the performance of their best people, their best younger people. Right. So that was one finding. Second is what we were finding. What we found here was the intersection of good versus bad is the study that you and I talked about when we last got together, which was, what are you worried about going into 2024? And immigration was a huge concern. Not because people taking stands on, what the policy should be, but people just taking stands on, would they just shut up and do something about it?
Right.
Okay. And then what you find is in the last several weeks, which is why we rushed this blog out, was that the people we were hearing from was, see, this is the problem all along, is people's unwillingness to cooperate or collaborate, even if it's in everybody's best interests. Okay. It makes collaboration insincere.
Right.
All right. And sends just a horrible direction. Okay. Now, I can't go into this in the interview, but one of the things I was doing in Europe, I was over in Brussels, okay, and the news about Trump and inviting Russia to invade other countries breaks.
Yeah, crazy, right?
So I'm trying to work with all these people from other countries, and they're saying, dude, why the fuck should I pay attention to you?
Right.
So, my ability to influence collaboration was at a disadvantage too. So I kind of worked on this article on the plane, which I got out. And frankly, the response to it has been what you would expect. Sometimes you do blogs and you hear crickets. Other times it's, they get picked up on other platforms and, usually with somebody else's name on it, but so far so good.
Right. That's great. I think it's a great topic. And I think it's a topic that's underexplored. And it's an interesting topic because more and more Washington, D.C. and our great party leaders are doing so many things that are contrary to collaboration. It's very rare to see
Right.
anything get passed. I guess there are a few things that have kind of made their way through the system for Joe Biden, but he's dealing with a very divided House and Senate. And, I don't think I remember the last time somebody in a cabinet member got impeached, which
Well, it's 150 years ago, actually.
isn't that wild? Like I've never heard of, oh, now we're going to target a member of the cabinet to kind of send the message that I guess, look, impeachment is now de rigueur. Everyone does it. And if you sneeze the wrong way, you're going to get impeached and you have to go through the process. And I don't know who you're going to get as talent from high potentials when they look at it and say, you go to DC and you get destroyed one way or the other.
Well,
Right?
well, you've already seen it with, Senator Flake from Arizona just saying, I'm out of here. Okay. Even longer term people like Corker from Tennessee, I'm out of here. Adam Kinzinger, an Air Force veteran, young man, conservative congressman, just saying, this isn't the Republican Party that I wanted to be in.
Right.
Okay, so you're just seeing a lot of it, and if we focus on you and I are older, we know that the people that we've supervised or managed or led or whatever word is, the thing is we underappreciate how much time they are expending observing us, how we interact, how we position ourselves, frankly, how we dress.
Right.
Okay. How we speak, how we write. And, they go to school on us because their theory is, okay, well, if this is the dude I'm reporting to, they must be doing something right. So I got to figure out what the hell that is and try to pattern some of those behaviors. So ask and answer the question. Okay. We just saw Trump send a message to the entire Republican universe saying, you finally got a goddamn bill through one of the most important conservative senators on a bipartisan basis on a topic we all know needs to be fixed. Don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And if you do, it's at your peril.
Right.
Right. It's a threat. It wasn't even an implied threat. It was a threat.
Right.
Okay. Right. And, everybody caved.
It's amazing.
Everybody caved. So, when you promote collaboration or using the political parlance here, bipartisanship, or collective solutions. And you have to ask the question, all right, what is the upside of collaboration, which doesn't seem to be right now persuasive? Or what's the downside of not collaborating? God knows. God knows. So the only thing right now that we can reasonably assume is that the situation is not going to get any better. It's going to be more chaotic.
And I think the same thing is true in organizations, business organizations, big,
Sure.
medium, and small, but mostly big, because information and resources get siloed. People that are in charge of those silos want to keep their power. And they worry to some degree that if they give up some resources or they give up some information, that their control over the silo will go away. And more and more, you can't in this world silo information and not be at a competitive disadvantage. I mean, that's a huge learning that I think companies as big as Motorola, IBM, like you can go down the list, Xerox, all these companies, Kodak, all these companies had amazing, amazing inventions and were ahead of the time at the time, because Kodak, it created the electronic camera. I mean, literally, it should have been predominant, but I think they siloed so many things that they just couldn't imagine breaking the silo. And it's history now.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at the process back in the 80s that 3M had, okay, of the inventors coming in to pitch their ideas, okay, Post-its, okay, Post-its came because there was some guy who led a choir and his pieces of paper kept falling out of the hymnals. Right. And fortunately, he worked for 3M.
Right.
All right. And he was able to essentially make the argument saying there's got to be a way that we can develop an adhesive that doesn't rip the print off.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And
there's actually an outside guy who claims that he contributed that idea through an unsolicited invention disclosure, and that the inventor claims what you just described copied his idea, and that guy is still litigating against.
Is that right?
It's a funny, it's one of those funny patent stories about how sort of ideas, their time arrives and multiple people see them at the same time.
Yeah, I kind of look at that as who really wrote Stairway to Heaven.
Right.
Right. And then I look at it in terms of relating it to music. George Harrison got sued because his most famous song, "My Sweet Lord,"
right,
the chord progression was a song made famous by the Chiffons called "He's So Fine."
Right.
The thing is, he's got the rhythm running in his head.
Right.
Exactly. He doesn't know where the hell it came from.
Right. We're going to see that more and more because but in terms of collaboration, the big picture topic here is how do you get CEOs to model collaboration, because often they want to give commands and directions and less about consensus. They really want to sort of be generals in an army and say, just do this, right?
I think they used to. Okay. And I think some of the older ones probably still do. But I think that the reality is that most of the leaders that are in top tiers right now grew up wanting, certainly ambitious. They grew up wanting to have, they've certainly achievement oriented, but they also realize that they're not going to be able to do much if people don't like them and are unwilling to follow them. And they basically step back and say, there's only so much I can threaten them, all right, to get them to do what I want. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I want to say that the example of lack of collaboration that we've been talking about so far, which just happened on the Senate bill on immigration, I believe that is exceptional. I believe, as a general rule, leaders in most organizations, big and small, commercial or not-for-profit, realize their leverage is going to be, if not always has been, to get the best out of the people, particularly the best people. Mm-hmm. So if they exhibit the good behaviors, they're more likely to get it. If they exhibit the bad behavior, they won't. One of the things that the behavior that you try to break as fast as possible. I remember my oldest granddaughter, who's now 22, 23, she went through the period of no share. Okay. It was, if she, and then she had a sister. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the combination of no, honey, you have to share, then having no choice but to share. That's the evolution of relationships.
Right.
Okay. Right. And if you start thinking about collaboration, saying, okay, not only do you have to share, you have to co-create. And that's the part of collaboration that I think we run the risk of not losing, because there's too many people who are doing it well, but you're not hearing enough about the success of collaboration, the necessity to collaborate.
Well, it's like this back to office movement. I think a lot of CEOs are believing, and Apple is one of them, that if we don't get people back to the office at least 3 or 4 days a week, we're not going to get the level of collaboration that we'd like to get that inspires new products and, completely off the wall ideas that sometimes emerge from conversations that really have to almost happen in a very spontaneous way, often in a cafeteria, right?
Right.
Often during lunch.
I mean, the pandemic, there was an article written, it's the cover article, Harvard Business Review, written by a woman that I've interacted with for years, Dr. Linda Grattan, and she's very much about the future of work. And it was the cover of Harvard Business School. I think it was June 22.
Okay.
And in the article, what she's expressing here is you need to disaggregate the future of work into the experience. Okay. People are concerned about safety. Obviously, we're coming out of a pandemic. Okay. So proximity to other people was a risk. It's a personal risk.
Right.
Okay. Then you get into the situation here in terms of productivity. And there's a number of studies, and there's many conclusions that you can draw. It is that actually working from home, using the vehicle that we're communicating with each other with right now, Zoom, okay, actually helps with productivity. Okay. And it because you're concentrating at the time you're interacting. There's not a lot of quote unquote distractions.
Right.
Not the least of which is commuting.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now the organizations that are saying you have to come back are doing it for three reasons. One is they're paying for all of this office space.
Right.
Second is they're legitimately concerned that managing people that they never see is a problem. Okay. And third is that innovation, okay, is suffering. Okay. Innovation and experimentation, i.e. driven by collaboration, is suffering. All of those are accurate. All of those are persuasive. All of those are influencing the decision. But, most organizations right now are reverting back to a hybrid. Okay, where, they're not demanding people. Some organizations are, obviously, but a lot of organizations are saying, okay, you have to be in 3 days per week or two, and et cetera, trying to satisfy what are the interests of the workers. Particularly, they're having difficulty finding good people.
Right.
That they're trying to adapt and accommodate. A lot of people don't like it. Okay, I happen to like interacting with people personally, but I'm doing most of my work on Zoom right now. Right. All right. But at the same time, I think it's at the expense of the enterprise to mandate presence with the assumption that people aren't going to be upset by that.
Right. I think they want to some degree to imagine that they will get more inspiration across through the personal interactions that occur, and they will do it in a way that generates new ideas. Like if you're a business like Apple, really you have to have a blockbuster or two almost every 5 or 10 years to create this cycle. I mean, I was at an Apple store, physically present at an Apple store last night, and there were a lot of people. I was there to basically test out the Apple Vision Pro glasses because you have to make an appointment, but you go there. It's actually big to do. And I was thinking to myself, it had to be years in the making that they worked on these glasses, because I actually saw the original inventor 40 something years ago who walked in unannounced to our law office. I was just a young associate, and said, I need to see a lawyer. I think I've invented something that's really marvelous. His name is Jaron Lanier. He's still around. He does some TED Talks. He's a visionary. He came in saying, I've created what I'm calling virtual reality, and I've got this air guitar where I can play in the air and the sound will get transmitted through a computer. And he said, I can demonstrate it to you and I can show you how it works. But I've got this whole idea of a gesturing language where in free space you can move, and there'll be eye tracking where your eyes move. And Apple, 40 years later, all the patents now have all expired, I think. And Apple's created something where it's a little clunky, but literally it does track your eyes and it does allow this gesturing language. So you don't have to carry around joysticks. You don't have to carry around mouses in the air, anything like that. You're literally moving your eyes to different icons and you're manipulating your spatial environment. They're calling this spatial computing. And I got to imagine that this has been in the works for at least 5, maybe even 10 years. And they finally got to a point where they said, look, Meta has introduced through buying Oculus this, Quest 1, Quest 2, now up to Quest 3, I think is the name of it. I think it's called Quest. And it's $500, and we've got to come out with a product, or else we're going to look like we're irrelevant. Of course, the product Apple has is like $3,500. And the reason I bring this all up is it must have taken a huge team of developers, because you got hardware, you got software, you got sensors, you got plastic, you've got power systems. It must have impacted so many different domains. And they got this done through the pandemic. They just released it about a week, maybe a few weeks ago. But, they made a big announcement late last year to kind of freeze the market, probably to make Meta suffer a little bit during Christmas. But the reason I say it is, you got to be imagining now. They're trying to imagine what the next big thing is going forward, because it's got to be just as much of a blockbuster. And I don't know what that will be, but they've got to have people working on that, and they got to have people collaborating about that, right?
Well, I think that look at the evolution of how we listen to music. Okay, there's a Boston-oriented commercial that was on the Super Bowl, and I think there's a long version of it where Ben Affleck brings a CD to a guy, music CD, right? And he says, there's a beat on this, and he brings it to a music developer, and he says, I want you to listen to this and get beat. And the guy is kind of going, I think I know what that is, but CD is such old school. Right. And the thing that you look at right now, and I want to circle back to the topic of collaboration, is it's not like we don't know what the playbook is. And this is the part that was fascinating to me, is in the article, the blog that we wrote was a derivative of a dance group that I had the pleasure of seeing in 2014. That's been around since the 70s, developed by some students at Dartmouth College, and now they're a global group, the Globalist group. And it's all on how dancers can collaborate and turn their bodies into pretzels, to create just fantastic dance movements that are just astounding to watch. But there has to be such precision in movement between and among the dancers in order for it to work, or there'd be total failure. So that's a high risk, high reward form of collaboration that I witnessed and saw. 10 years ago, write a blog on that, promoting, this is collaboration. Now I fast forward since 2014 to now. Right. And then, as the person who's supposedly paying attention to what's going on in the world as it relates to leadership, and all of the research we're doing, whether it's for the books we've been writing on what high potentials expect from their leaders, which you and I have talked about, to the next thing that we've talked about, which is the review of children's books, where collaboration is front and center, to the worries that you are seeing, in terms of 2024. And then you see an inflection point, which everybody is talking about, everybody is worried about, which is immigration. And they stop collaborating for no good reasons. And that's the message that we just sent. Right. In the political ecosystem. Now, the commercial ecosystem still has to internalize that in order to get the best from their people, there's leverage. That's one. In order to get the best of the people on innovation, there has to be interaction too. Third is, in order to get the best of the people, the most senior leaders have to exhibit the best behaviors. Mm-hmm. Anything less than that puts it into a chaotic situation and sends appalling messages. And even worse, if you're a shareholder or an investor, it is, you're back to investing in the company that promoted the pet rock.
Right.
And you're just losing it. And the concern I have, particularly in the recent last couple of weeks, and the impetus for us to resuscitate this particular 10-year-old blog, was all of our research since then is saying, okay, we can't get numb to the fact that collaboration is no longer a priority. No, I'm sorry, those are not the right words. Collaboration is incidental. It is essential now. We really need to get focused on the fact that without it, we're in difficult times, and they're not going to get any better if we sacrifice our ability to collaborate on any level, through any problem, through any exercise in intellectual or professional execution. You're at a disadvantage. And the concern I have is that we're not making a big enough deal about it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you where my head goes, which is I think that there will now be forms of AI systems that will measure how much collaboration is actually occurring inside of a team. So let me give you an example of this. So obviously there'll be all this Zoom stuff that will continue. There'll be meetings, there'll be hybrid activities, but there will be texting-based systems, call them Slack, call them online learning systems. You can call them whatever you want, where people are contributing various additions to ideas to what might be a business plan canvas. It might be a product plan canvas. It might be the next version of these glasses that respectively Meta and Google and Apple are all introducing as what you could argue may be the next smartphone. Is you're wearing actual glasses and you're not picking up a piece of glass to look at, or you're not stationing it, you're just wearing it, and we're interacting through those glasses. And I think there'll be AI measurement tools that say, Jack historically would write at least 1,000 words a week or 10,000 words a week, and he's down to 50. He must be doing other things with his attention, and we can't find them. So he must be on his own separate journey, writing something else, whether it's children's books or a personal novel or something else. We're not seeing the contributions from him anymore. I think those systems will make their way up to HR or whoever is the supervisory talent to say, I got to talk to Jack and find out what happened, because he was active in the classroom of the group that was occurring, and now he has kind of gone mute. And I think we're going to see that. I think we're going to have people that literally will do some degree of counseling around, you don't seem to be engaged anymore. You don't seem to be inspiring anyone anymore. You don't seem to be doing anything of any creative interest anymore. What happened? And, maybe there'll be an explanation, someone died, or I got into a bicycle accident, I got hurt, or something happened. I don't know, but I think we're going to see those tools start to get embedded in the various systems that we engage with. And that will be kind of a whole new metric on the collaboration discussion. And can you measure it? And can you measure it in effective ways, right?
Well, I think that the mechanisms are evolving, and I think that they're going to get more and more sophisticated as we go down the AI journey. Okay, there's no question about that. But I think that the collaboration, the way that I think about it, is I'm going to revert to a military issue here. Okay, there's command and control.
Mhm.
Okay. But there also has to be the inspiration of the leader looking out for the interests of their platoons, of their squads, of their flights. And the issue here is the behaviors will never, the ability to manifest the appropriate behaviors will never go away, regardless of what the technology, infrastructure, and support is or isn't. And the concern that I have is, as a collaboration, what we're seeing manifested in the media, what we're seeing manifested in terms of, or reported in the media, is the manifestation of behaviors that are counterintuitive to me if we think collaboration is a priority.
Right.
Okay, so from the behavioral point of view, we can measure it because inputs and outputs, if there is a lack of collaboration as an input, then the output isn't going to be all that great.
Right.
Okay. If there's a lack of discipline in any ecosystem to focus on the ultimate objective, then you're not going to have it. And that's where I think that the behavior of collaboration, it's just logical to me that if you promote collaboration, you're going to get a better outcome, period. Right. And if you don't exhibit, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jack. If you don't exhibit collaboration as one of your priority leadership attributes, why would anybody follow you?
So I want to use 3 examples, and I wonder because I don't really see it in the news in any way, and it could be because Tim Cook for Apple and Sundar Pichai for Google, if I'm pronouncing his name right, and whoever is the latest person that's in charge of Microsoft, I forget his name. He's got another immigrant, by the way, very successful. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, but like, how do they actually promote collaboration in their positions of leadership in essentially businesses that are all about knowledge work? I mean, they're all about knowledge work, and they're all about managing tens of thousands of knowledge workers who have to develop essentially mostly software products that are going to be world changing and are going to amplify the productivity of millions, if not billions of people worldwide.
Yeah, I think that, I'm reducing it to an essence, and I'm going to promote the military model, if you don't mind. One is clarity about what is the mission, essentially what is it you're attempting to achieve. If you amass the energy of 10,000 knowledge workers, what is the direction you want them to go, and be able to articulate that in such a way that people, quote unquote, get it. Second is you provide them the resource.
The CEO of Microsoft is Satya Nadella. Sorry, I couldn't remember his name, but I just typed it into Google.
Yeah. Well, when he listens to this podcast, he'll be glad that you looked it up.
That's right.
Second,
I don't want to slight anyone here,
Yeah. Well, he's going to be seeing if you buy stock tomorrow. But the second issue here, in terms of the other issue, is make sure that you have the ability to have the appropriate resources. You can't expect people to achieve something if you don't supply them with the resources in order to do it.
Right.
Okay. Whether you can't move an army without food, you can't move it without transportation, you can't expect it to fight without ammunition. Okay. So the resources are there. Third is you train. You make sure that the people have the optimum skill level. Okay. And this is where collaboration comes in. While you're training them, you promote collaboration as a necessity, a strategic necessity.
Right.
And the other issue is you measure the other outcomes. Now, whether or not you use AI to do it, or whether or not you look at it at the achievement of a mission, a military mission, a special operations, or something like that, regardless of how you have to measure. You have to measure. And if frankly there's failure, you have to process out why there was failure, and after incident report, et cetera. But this is, and I'm oversimplifying what I think to be a complex problem. If you are deficient in knowing where you want to go, providing the resources in order to do it, training to make sure that people have the skills, including promoting the need for collaboration between and among those people you're asking to do it, okay, then your outcome is delusional. It ain't going to happen.
So do you think from a cultural point of view, the U.S. is ahead of Europe? Like you've just come back from Europe. Do you think the Europeans embrace in businesses and nonprofit organizations a greater degree of collaboration than, say, the U.S. do? Or how would you compare cultures? Because I think there are cultures, like I think the Spaniards and Portuguese and certain, what I'll call Hispanic cultures are much more collaborative generally and they do meetings in a very different way than we do meetings, right?
It's a very difficult question to answer based on my experience roaming around the world, the Americas and Europe,
right.
Because the benchmark that my company uses, okay, is focused on the quality of the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what we're looking at is, can you look at a successful company and ask and answer the question, how integral is the leadership model to the success of that company? Or in our case, because we're talking about political ecosystems, in the terms of the success of that society. Let's take the Ukraine for a moment. Okay. President Zelensky was a comic.
Right.
Okay. He came in because of the corruption in the presidency. Frankly, I don't think the Ukrainians had a high expectation of the man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he was under a lot of scrutiny before the war, but the dude stepped up when there was a war.
Right.
Okay. So they've changed their opinions of him. All right. So the man met the moment. Okay. Something about him rose to that occasion.
And he's still doing it, right?
He is. I think he should be getting a little bit more help from us to do it, but yes, he is still doing it. That's the part that and I don't mean to be evade answering your question. That's the part that I think that we need to look at, not only in the political domain, but also in the commercial domain, are the men and women who we are asking to lead these entities, enterprises, countries, are they meeting that moment? Okay, are they promoting their interests at the expense of the company? And if not, are they clear on what they expect? Are they providing the resources and training? Okay, and frankly, are they measuring outcomes?
So when you look at where we're headed as we sort of wrap up this podcast, do you think we're headed in the right direction generally?
I think in the commercial sector, based on our experience in the commercial sector, yes, absolutely. Okay. I think that the Generation X leaders that are now emerging into senior most positions in companies, they understand the importance of collaboration.
Right.
Okay, they always have. All right. They're trying to figure out the best way to challenge people to collaborate, and they're also figuring out the best way to channel the energies of themselves and their leadership group to make sure it's a priority. So in the commercial sector, we're talking about technology here in New England, it's life sciences. Okay. You're not going to get anything done unless there is collaboration, period, full stop. So these leaders right now, they're doing fine. They get it. They know what the playbook is, and they're living that day to day. There's distractions about remote work, Zooms, mandating people to come to work, et cetera. But that doesn't mean that they've lost sight of the importance of collaboration. On the political sector, we are seeing now chaos, but we also see some good news. I'm looking what happened in Poland with the election there. Mm-hmm. Okay, where the folks that were really just going way to the extreme were voted out. Where I'm giving myself a pause is in the U.S., but not just the U.S. only in terms of the political system, is that if we promote the idea of success at the expense of collaboration or saying it's no longer a priority, then you have an issue here. And I'm using the political system. There's a gentleman that's quoted in the blog that you read, Jack. Mm-hmm. I don't want to mispronounce his name. Right. I don't want to have a twofer, and I can't look it up. But he used to be the head of the European Commission.
Okay.
And his quote, which resonated with us, was, "It's not that politicians don't know what the right thing to do is. It's just that they know how difficult it is to do, and frankly, how it could be at the expense of their political careers to do the right thing. So they focus on expediency." And that's the conflict that I think we really need to end on here is, if expediency is the priority, collaboration is gone. Okay, rest in peace. It's toast. Mm-hmm. If collaboration in pursuit of a goal that people embrace and enthusiastic about and is the right one, people will, that are numb right now will get unnumb and pursue it. And that to us is what our research has been telling us now during the pandemic and right up through today, that people really have untapped energy and they're looking for the leadership to say, okay, how are we going to get it? The two examples that we put in this, one you and I talked about before, was this young governor of Pennsylvania when a highway fell down outside of Philadelphia. And all the experts were saying months and months and months to put it back together. He mobilized federal, state, local resources, and they were back up with a highway in 12 days.
It's a great story, right? I mean, it's a really
absolutely, and it's a classic one of collaboration. And look at what happened with that Japanese airline disaster last month. Okay, where they all got out.
Mm-hmm. In a very, very calm way.
They did what they were supposed to do. They helped each other. Okay, and they all survived. Mm-hmm. Okay, and think of what would have happened is if somebody said, okay, and my priority is to get me out of the plane, and I don't really give a damn what happens to you. Loss of life, absolute loss of life. So there was collaboration. There was collaboration, cooperation, driven by survival, but driven by caring that the other person survived too.
Yeah, okay, it's a really great topic, and I think it's going to continue to be in the news in a big way. And we're going to see a lot more research on it and probably a lot more measurement attempts. And I think we're in for a period of time when people are going to start realizing right at the level of grade school, high school, college, that you've got to collaborate and be part of a team and then be part of the leadership, servant leadership comes to mind, of a team in a way that produces greater collective efforts. And there'll always be people that are kind of lone inventors. I mean, they've always tinkered in their basements and they've always done what they do, but that won't be the majority of knowledge work in the US and probably not the majority of knowledge work in the world. And
there's always going to
be key, right?
There's always going to be people who choose to play tennis versus choose to play football or soccer. Okay. Right. That's just personalities. But at the same time, we live in a collective world. We really need to understand that some of the decisions that our leaders are making on all levels affect us all.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So we have to hope we get the right collaborative president of the United States while sometime in the next 30 years, while you and I are still alive, so we can do a podcast that says, finally, we've gotten someone that has listened to the message and is following it. I mean, I hope it happens for the best of the entire world, really.
Yeah, I don't want to have you lose all of your MAGA listeners here, but I actually think Mr. Biden does try.
He does try. He does try. And God bless him. You have to give him credit, because I doubt that when he was in his 60s, he thought to himself, man, I really aspire to be a president by the time I'm 81. And to be in office at 85, I have to believe somewhere he imagined at some point, I'm really going to move on and just take care of my great grandkids and kind of relax and enjoy the fruits of all the work that I've done. I think you have to look at it from his perspective. He's kind of a patriot. I mean, I give him credit because it can't be that he made a plan and he wanted to be in office for another 4 years. It has to be that they really said, we don't have another candidate. You are the man. You have to be part of it. And he said, okay, I'll serve. I'll do it. And I think on the collaboration piece is at least trying. But the other thing that I was focusing on age, seeing you raised it, a couple of weeks ago, I turned 74. You look great, man.
Well, when I'm listening about President Biden being an old doddering old fool, and the same people who are complaining about his age are lining up to get tickets to the Rolling Stones and Paul McCartney, exactly. There's a certain sense of irony and hypocrisy that I have to endorse.
It's true, but listen, Botox is there to protect both of us. You're looking great. Stay healthy.
Thank you, sir.
We'll tune in again. I look forward to your next blog.
Thank you, sir, for having me back.
See you later.
Take care now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.